Hey everyone, welcome back, and in this video I'm going to explain how I made these sample schedules in Excel. I had one or two students ask me about this week, and for those unfamiliar with Excel, I'm going to try to go as basic as possible in order to not just explain why I prefer to make schedules with Excel versus like Google Docs or on paper, which it's definitely good to have a backup schedule, but what Excel can do with formatting and things like that when it comes to making schedules. Which, like just looking down here, for example, the tab menu allows me to have multiple sheets where I can see and compare multiple semesters. I may be able to make something over here, for example, to have basically a finalized list that looks like a transcript if I wanted to so do that. But using this example here, let's just run through and make a sample schedule. So the first thing I'm noticing over here is that I extended the columns and the rows to make it fit into the table. So looking at the columns first, it looks like I defaulted the column width to be 35. So I'm going to go to the new sheet. It looks like I used 5 columns, and then go to the right click column width, and then make that 35. So now it's a bit wider. And same thing with the rows. It looks like I used rows 2 through 11. So let's highlight rows 2 through 11. By just clicking and dragging, and then right click, row height, same thing, switch it to 25. So now just the formatting alone makes it look a little similar. And let's do some formatting with this row too. So how about we just change this to a font that looks nice, doesn't really matter which one specifically, and then jump the size up to like 24, 26. How about 24? That looks good. And then we can now start filling in the data. So the first thing I have in here is the class name. So I'll just type that out, class name. And then with the bottom corner here, I can click on the plus sign and then drag across, and it will autofill for every single column that I'm looking under. So then next is the professor, the rate my professor rating, units, and fulfills. Okay. So professor, rate my professor rating, units, and fulfills. And I'm just going to do the same thing as before, dragging all the way across with autofill, just to speed up this process. Okay. So now that we have the base data put in, what we can do is we can highlight everything. I'm going to highlight this blank row as well because this data eventually will be filled in. And then we go to Insert, Table right here, and then we press OK, and then we can change over here whatever style we'd like the table to be. So suppose I want it to be, let's say a how about like an orange like this. And oh, looks like I did not get this column to go all the way, so let's move this row height, or row I mean, change it back to 25. Format is still there. And then we can also, actually I'm not a huge fan of this format. Let's switch to blue, which is nice. Okay, this one looks a little better. And then, so one other thing I noticed with this is that the column names over here are defaulting. So then we can take this and autofill all the way across. Oops, did not click the right thing. We'll probably just do it this way. Messing up a little bit. Not the absolute greatest at Excel. And then we can basically delete everything here. Just do it that way. And then with this row, since it is extra, we can just go here and delete the row. And then now it's going to match the formatting. And it's a 11 size font, but it may be a little hard to read, so we can always highlight everything. Make the font up to 18, 16, I think 14 is solid for this. And now it looks very similar to the fall class schedule that we made for the earlier videos. And if we slide to the right here, I just have some random data here. And these were used to make the data validation list within my table, right? So if I go to the units, for example, and I click this drop down bar, it shows me all available unit counts that I decided to put in this database over here. So for example, suppose we have a class that's 0.5 units, and this is one of the downsides of a data validation list, is if I had a class that's only half a unit, half a semester unit, Microsoft Excel will not let me run it through because I did not put this in my initial data. So I would have to put 0.5 in this data and then run through the entire process. But what is nice is that for using units, for example, or Rate My Professor, which I have basically categories right here as to what I would want to look for, is that I can easily just drag, drop, click whichever, and just run right through it. So let's run through making another list then. So for units, generally speaking, I have not seen a semester class that is more than 6 units, but I'm sure it is still possible. So let's just run 1, 2, and then once we have these two done, Microsoft Excel will catch that we're counting that way. So then let's highlight 1 through 6, go to define name, and let's call this list, let's just call it list 2, or let's just call it list 1. Name already exists. Well, I think I ran through this example before. Let's just call this unnamed list, like that. And then what we can do here is we can highlight all of these, go to formulas, data, there it is, data validation, and then we want to input a list, which was the data there, and then we would want to call it the same thing, which is unnamed list, and we want to put an equal sign there to show that we're using a formula, so equals and then the name we put in equals unnamed list, and now these should show 1 through 6, which they do. And then we can do the same thing with the Rate My Professor rating. I'm just going to copy those data probably, except there is a space there. I think I'll just type it out manually. So, okay. So then for those values I put greater than or equal to 4.5, greater than or equal to 4, greater than or equal to 3.5, and then greater than or equal to 0. So let's call these, so let's call this list conditions. And then we do the same thing as before. Highlight all relevant rows. Go to data validation. Once again, it's a list. And then we put equals conditions. And we press OK. And this should give us the values here. And that's it.